in Mexico, the border problem started. So the third horse had to get taken illegally through the Rio Grande. So then everything started going bad. Then when we got to Guatemala, the first border, then it was just impossible, right? And then they want money, and there is so much corruption and so dangerous. So then I started befriending these drug lords, because they don't ask you who you are. I'm going through the mountains, right? The St. Pat's, they cross cocaine, AK-47s, whatever. So there you have to let them know, because if they don't know who you are, they're going to kill you first and then find out whose body it was.
When I did the documentary for Journey to the NFL that I did last year.
Yes, sir. That was so good.
Your call for Bo Cooper winning this thing was literally like, I don't know if there's, a top 5 I have, but you're right up there at number 1 with most electric moments.
No, man, it's funny because I always tell Claire, right, my fiance is from Argentina, I'm like, it's like watching soccer with like an American calling it and a Latin American, right? Americans like, oh, it was a goal, a beautiful goal. And us, it's like, go, 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 go. You're like breaking the microphone. And I just can't control it, man. I know it's like, I'm sure it's controversial. I don't read like the message boards or anything. I'm sure there's people out there that's like, that guy's way too excited. But I love tie-down roping, man. And everything I do, I go 110 into it like you guys. And that's just the way it comes out.
It is cool to have somebody, commentating at this rodeo. We're not always blessed enough to have somebody that actually truly loves our sport and really gets into it and loves what we do. So it's pretty cool to have somebody like that.
Thanks, buddy. It means a lot coming from you, man.
Sure. So I wanted you to get into your backstory a little bit, because I was looking you up on your Instagram and stuff. Obviously, I've known you. Honestly, I just found out yesterday you went on your 8-year journey on horseback from. So we're going to get into all your crazy story, did a documentary about it.
Yes, sir.
Crazy. You grew up, tell me about your upbringing, because you got into journalism and stuff, but then where are you at before? Because you started roping calves early, you said.
So I grew up in Brazil. I was born in Brazil, small town, small ranching community. My dad was just a cowboy growing up. He rode bulls, he rode broncs, he did cutting, he tied down. And my dad was my first hero, like I remember everywhere he went, I'd look up to him and be like, I want to be a cowboy. I just thought it was so cool. And my parents gave me the name Filipe because it means a friend of horses. So it's destiny, right? I always tell people we all have journeys, we all have our paths to take, and man, like mine has proven back to back to back to back that it's all written by the same hand. So my dad gives me the name Filipe, and when I'm a little kid, I'm so scared. Like I'm a very frightened young man. So before I went to bed, I started crying in my room, and I was afraid of the boogie monster. And my dad would tell me a story about this Swiss school teacher that rode horseback from Argentina to New York in 1925. And to show me that fear doesn't exist, he's like, man, that guy wasn't scared. He faces fear. Like he created a story. And so I grew up listening to the story. 9 years old, my parents moved to Canada. We moved out here. My dad wanted to give us a better life. Brazil's beautiful, but it's a tough country. Politics change. Everything's changed. It's not very safe. Yeah. Moved to a small town in Ontario. And then everything changed, man. I started tie-down roping, made it to the National High School Finals 2 years in a row. But out east it's tough. There's not much opportunity out there for a tie-down roper. And I always loved writing, always loved filming like you and documenting stuff and pick journalism to study. And yeah.
So, okay, there's so much ground to cover, but I heard you got told 15 days you got to leave the country. What's that? Is that?
Oh man, yeah, that was crazy. So immigration, right? Like it hit me hard, man. Like my dad had a work permit for 8 years, and then on year 8 it got denied. And we're like, man, what do we do? Our whole lives were here, right? We had horses, we had a house, we had a life. And I never, because I came here when I was 9, it's like Brazil was just this far away land to me, right? It wasn't my home. Like Canada was my home. All my buddies were here, so at 18, we applied for citizenship. We're like, what do we do? We hired a lawyer. He's like, apply for citizenship. It worked out. It took 2 years. Bam, they denied it again. So you got 15 days to leave the country. I just finished my first year of university, and my life fell apart. It was like someone pulled the ground from underneath me. I'm like, what am I going to do? So just worked construction, made some money, and went back to Brazil, not knowing what my outcome was going to be.
But that's when you made the huge decision that you're going to do it on horseback, right?
That was before. So I was still 19 years old. That was right before the trip. So I went back to Brazil, not knowing if I was going to come back. And then this angel, I meet so many angels in my life. This woman said, you want to come back? I said, yeah. She's like, I'm going to give you a scholarship. Because my parents didn't have the money to pay. International students are so expensive.
I got you.
Up here. So this woman gives me a scholarship. I come back like a year later. I'm so happy. And then at the end of university, 3 years later, that's when I make the decision to say, I'm gonna ride back to Brazil.
Let's just start with this. I'm a very impulsive guy. I'm a 6 month to 6 month kind of guy, right?
Ain't that the truth?
Even this podcast, we're like, hey, hard deadlines. Can I get 6 months out of you?
If I need you to make a commitment, and I'm sticking you to
6 months out of you. You make
doesn't
that.
have to be through 5 years, but whatever you commit to, I'm
We're gonna
sticking
do it.
to it,
6
or
months.
we're having it out.
You
Oh,
make
man.
that. You know it's going to be years and years of a trek. I
Yes,
guess
sir.
what goes into the decision? What's in your going through your mind?
Man, just that everything in my body said I have to do this. Like it was just my faith, man. Nothing short of that.
Yeah, that's how I roll too.
That's
And,
how-
and so, I mean, how long was this? How, like, it came into your mind, and then when did you decide? Okay, I'm doing it.
So, like, my dad used to read me this book as a child. So I'm thinking I'm the Swedish guy crossing rivers and you know crossing the Andes. And then I moved to Canada, and the trip never left my mind. A couple years would go by, I think about the trip. Then I'm in my last year of university, and it starts coming to me like, man, can you imagine doing a documentary on this? Like riding at 3 kilometers an hour, 30 kilometers a day through Mexico, through Honduras, through Guatemala. Like imagine the stories you tell. And then it just slowly went from a dream to a project. I started, researching it. Is there anyone doing this today? Because it's a totally different world. 1925, people still traveled on horseback, right? Like now you got major roads and orders and found the Long Riders Guild, which is like this organization that maps out everyone that's done it and everyone that's doing it, and reached out to them and said, hey, do you think it'd be possible? And they kind of helped me. And then I spent 2 years planning, like strategic planning. I mean, you know what it's like.
Like just your schedule, like your map of how you're going to do it.
Everything, bro. You got to get your body ready, your mind. You got to get your horses. You got to get money. Like this is more than $1 million project. Like I had to finance this. I didn't have a single horseshoe. I had an old roping horse that I sold. That horse couldn't have made it to the border with Montana. So I needed 2 horses. I needed a pack saddle. I needed a riding saddle. I needed the money. So the 2 years there with the strategic planning, that's what made all the difference.
What were your loved ones saying to you at this time?
Man, I always say I'm so blessed. I feel like we are like a spin image of our parents, right? And I am who I am today, thanks to my mom and dad. Like they never cut my wings when I told them. They supported me from day one. My mom was so selfless. She could have said no, right? She knew I was going to be riding through some of the most dangerous countries in the world. And she said, no, if that's what you want to do, she's like, I'll support you. Let's go. Let's make this happen. My dad, the same way. But obviously I had friends that were like, man, what are you doing?
You're psychotic.
You're throwing your life in the garbage, man. Like you can get a great job here in Canada. Like, why are you going to do this? So it was tough, man. You start to question yourself, like your own mind starts saying like, what are you doing? Like you're going to die, So it was a tough period in my life.
I want to know where your mindset was. So somebody takes on a new job or going to run a marathon. Everybody has a different mindset. Like of how were you managing your excitement, your nervousness, your stress level, everything? How were you? Where were you at on day one?
Honestly, Ty, day one, I'm right here, right by these barns. Got these 2 quarter horses here. I meet them 7 days earlier in Panoka, baby.
That's crazy.
Panoka. They bring him up. Brian Anderson, bulldogger from the U.S., works at Copper Spring Ranch. During these 2 years, I get these ranches to give me 2 horses. 2 quarter horses from Montana. Boom, I got the horses. Production company out of the U.S. buys the project to do the documentary. We'll pay you monthly, however long it takes. You ship us the cards, we'll do the doc. Perfect. So I got everything I need. Then I come to Alberta from Ontario, meet the 2 horses. Frenchie was a Frenchman's guide. 7 years, no one's touched this horse. No one gives you a good horse, right?
Yeah.
This old man wanted to kill me. The first day I went to ride this horse, he bucked. He bucked like a Calgary Stampede horse, bro. Almost killed me. Broke my finger, ripped my jeans. I fell on top of my hat. I got 7 days to leave from the Calgary Stampede. I'm like, I'm dead. Like, how am I going to do that? I can't even ride this horse. How am I going to do this? So I put the pack saddle on him. I start working things out. He takes the pack saddle. We ship the horses here to the Calgary Stampede. I come to these blue barns. Man, it was like, at the same time that it was the happiest moment of my life, it was the scariest. Like anxiety, just like you said, man, like through the roof, bro. There's so many unknowns and I had to do everything. I'm a one-man team. I'm filming this. I'm talking to the press. I need to worry about the horses. And like, there's so many people. It was the 100th Calgary Stampede. This place is bumping, right? Thousands of people. The mounted police are with me. There's media from all over the world filming me. And then I start, man. And then it hits you. You got 16,000 kilometers to ride. It's July. It's 100 degrees. These horses are nuts. I can barely control them. I'm in a major city in Canada and I don't even know where I'm going to sleep that night.
Yeah, which was that part of your like a rule, kind of a rule you laid out before, was you're gonna knock on someone's door every time, or what was that?
Yeah, it's just talking to these while I was doing the planning, talk to these long riders. They said, it's tough for you to set up places to stay because you don't know if your horses are gonna get you there. Sure, you say I'm gonna stay at Bob's house tonight. It's 40 kilometers. Well, what if the horse is done at 20 and you got to stay? Then you're not going to get there. You're not going to push that horse. So you just got to get up in the morning and ride and see where you get to. Yeah. You know what it's like to have these animals. You got to feel them out, right? How are they doing? And so that's just the way it went. Every day you had to knock on someone's door and ask for help. And if there wasn't anyone, you set up the tent and highline your horses. And, you eat some ramen noodle and go to bed.
So for our Americans, I looked it up. So 16,000 kilometers, about 10,000 miles.
Wow. Look at this guy. Podcast star. Good job.
10,000 miles
10,000
right
miles.
for you guys.
Yes, sir.
Isn't that, I think it's from the East Coast to the West Coast, 5,000, maybe.
Yeah. And so it's about that. Yeah.
About
so it'd be going back and forth, coast to coast.
The last 10 days, I was driving about 800 to 1,000 miles a day in this bus, and I felt like I was going through a marathon.
Yes.
Wow. And this was living.
All right,
I can't imagine riding.
You're going to Cheyenne from here, right?
Yes.
So when that hits your mind, you'll be like, damn, Felipe was riding a horse at 2 miles an hour. 2 miles an hour.
2 miles an hour.
20 miles a day.
So where did you go before Calgary? Where were you at?
Before Calgary, I was in Hermiston, Oregon doing a clinic. So that
Oregon,
was 10 and a half hours.
Just 6 months of Felipe's life
sir.
right there.
Yes, sir. That's crazy to think about, man. 20 minutes in the car is a day.
Oh, man. And we had a day and a half or 2 days and we had a little trouble with the AC. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah, the generator went out, the AC was out.
I was going to die. I really did.
So I was like,
I was taking like 10 cold showers. I was contemplating life. And this guy did 6 months of his life with no AC. I'm in with this luxurious life.
It makes you think. It really does.
That's a true story. I'm not exaggerating.
No, I know.
That's so good, man.
So
good.
Day one. So you knock on someone's door day one.
Yeah, day one. And the funny thing is, day one, I get to one ranch where like horses are tired. It's super hot. I'm like, I'm going to stay here. I go there. There's no one home. I was like, and it's so hard, right? Because think about this, man. Think about going to a stranger's house and asking to spend the night. Like, it is like, it sucks.
Yeah.
Like, no one does that right nowadays. And it's like, it's against every instinct in your body. So that was tough because you got all this anxiety. No one's home. Like, damn. So next place I knock, this woman comes out, cigarette in her mouth. She's like, how can I help you? I'm like, hey, how are you, ma'am? I'm like, I just left Calgary Stampede. I'm riding these 2 horses to Brazil. She's like, Brazil? She's like, there ain't no city here called Brazil. I was like, no, the country. Like, this woman almost had a heart attack. She's like, what do you mean you're riding to Brazil? I'm like, yeah, I'm riding the horse to Brazil. Because once you got further, it was easier. Right. Like, when you get to like Guatemala and you say, hey, can I sleep here? I was like, where you come from? Canada. They're like, Canada? Like, oh my God. Like, they want to celebrate it, right? But the first day I had ridden like, 15 miles, man. Like, it's so embarrassing, right? Like, I'm
heading to Brazil.
9,000 miles to go,
She probably thinks you're on drugs or
like 100%, right? Or crazy. But man, that was the best part of the trip, is the kindness of humanity, man.
I mean, literally the thought that just came to my mind was like, am I going to, like, you're the nicest guy I've ever met. One of the nicest guys I've ever met. I don't know if I would have said yes. I probably would have been like, keep walking,
you know what?
brother.
You know what? You know why they all said yes? No one ever denied me a place. Because the horse is a common language, my man.
Come on.
That's very true.
The horse is a very positive power.
That's very true.
A person with a horse doesn't want any trouble. I stayed in the homes of drug lords. I stayed in the home of politicians. I stayed in the homes of people that had everything and people that had nothing. And it was thanks to the horse, man, through and through.
Yeah, you pull up to that lady's house in a Ford truck, she's probably not going to let you stay.
Yes, sir. Or in a motorbike or in a bicycle. It's totally different, man.
Yeah. So in the documentary and in the trailer for the documentary, there's like, I mean, this is an 8-year journey, but what was the lowest of the low point you can think of? Because we kind of were focusing on the beginning.
Yes, sir.
So when you get through the 8 years on the trip, when did it get like, oh, I'm down bad right now?
Man, I tell you what, the hardest moment was in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. I was staying at this guy's house and he tried to kill his wife with 5 gunshots. I was the only person staying there. I didn't know if he had killed her. I didn't know if he was going to come kill me next because I was seeing all this. So that was a moment where I was like, I'm going to die. Like, and I got to sleep in this guy's house all night. Like, it was really bad. But the lowest moment of my life came after I finished the first journey from Canada to Brazil. 2 years and a half, 803 days. I get to Brazil. I retire my 3 horses. I ended up, they gave me a Mustang down in the southern United States named Dude. So Frenchie and Bruiser, the quarter horses, I get Dude. I finished that trip. My kids, like the connection I had with those horses is amazing. I retire them. I finish and my life falls apart, bro. Depression, anxiety, recurring nightmares. Like I wasn't prepared for what would come after living my dream, you know, like I had dreamed about this my entire life. I worked so hard to get there, and I lost purpose in my life. Like it took so much from me to get there, I never saw after.
Right.
And today I've watched documentaries. Michael Phelps did a great doc with a lot of people that go to the Olympics. They go through the same thing. You know, when you battle for, I'm sure tie-down ropers, I'm sure rodeo guys, you know what I mean?
For sure.
You win that gold buckle and you realize, hey, it's just a gold buckle.
Yeah.
Wow. You don't grow a third eye. You don't change. You know what I mean? And for what? What was it for? Like, you know, and you really reached this low moment in your life. And I wish someone had prepared me for that. It was the worst 6 months, but I feel like God has a plan for everyone. I went to a children's cancer hospital in Brazil to do a motivational talk. I'm a motivational speaker today, and went to motivate these kids, right? I get there, they're missing limbs, they don't have hair, and they have a huge smile on their face, and they're fighting for their lives. It's so much positivity. And it was like God shook me at that moment, man. It was like, look at everything you've done, kid. Like, look at your health. You need to get out of this. And I learned that hospital needed to raise 16 million reais, which is like $7 million a month, to offer free healthcare to these kids. They don't charge anything. So it was like God put purpose back in my life. I'm like, what do I know how to do? How can I help them? I can ride horses long distance. So I did the second trip from Brazil to Ushuaia, Argentina, to raise funds for this hospital. And that's what got me out of that depression. And then this lady here, I met her in Argentina, man. My fiance, Clara, I asked for help at her house. And that's when I became whole again, man. I was like, wow, it was like that missing part of my life.
Wow, that's a pretty cool story.
So, I mean, that was a really like deep moment, but I hate to bring it to lighthearted, but we're talking yesterday at the little behind the chutes.
Yes, sir.
And it was one of the funniest things I heard you say, but you're like, I left an atheist and I arrived, I found God when I arrived.
Yes, sir.
And it was like hilarious when you said it. But what?
When Cole told me that you said that, I said, yeah, spend 8 years on a horse. I bet you find God.
Yes,
Spend 8
sir.
years on a horse, you'll
Yes,
probably
sir.
find God.
Yes, sir.
I was curious about that. Talk a little deeper through that.
Man, so I'm a big guy. Like, I don't know why, but I see injustice and it hurts me a lot. You know what I mean? I've before I graduated university, I was in Africa doing a documentary on HIV and AIDS, and I was in Peru doing a documentary out there, and just, I guess, being from Brazil, you know, from an early age, seeing the other side of the coin and that dichotomy between those who have and those who have nothing. And I just always found that religion complicated things. You know, I'd see the Vatican with gold walls and all this gold and all this money. And then it's all these people that have nothing to eat. And it always bothered me a lot, you know, and although I came from a family that's Catholic and, you know, I was baptized, I went through the whole thing, and I was an atheist. I thought of it as a negative thing. But when I went on this trip, man, and you spend 8 years on a horse in the middle of the most beautiful places on earth, by yourself, I'd spend 10 days without seeing a human being. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you talk to yourself, man, you find your spirituality, you see how perfect everything is, how connected everything is, you know what I mean? And you realize that everything's written by the same hand, like I said, and the kindness of people and these animals and this connection to the earth. And to me, if I hadn't found God on this trip, I would have never done it. Because everyone says, you know, did you ever think about quitting? I thought about quitting every day, man. But when you realize that you're just this tiny little being and there is a greater plan, you know, God's by your side every single day.
Yeah.
And there is a path and you're on that path and everything's okay, man, because he's right next to you, right? So there's no point of stressing. There's no point of crying. You just keep on working, keep on grinding, and everything will work out.
So, I mean, the solitude had to have been crazy. I mean, I don't know if solitude is the right word, but
100%.
Did you see a progression from like, I mean, it was 8 years, but so like month 1, year 3 of like how your mind was being completely by yourself?
Oh, 100%, man. And that's why, like, the second and third trip, I had people out with me because I saw that that's the perfect recipe for insanity. Like, I talked to a lot of explorers that have spent a lot of time out there, and their eyes ain't there no more. You know what I'm saying? Like,
over, yeah.
Because, man, it's like you've got animals, you're by yourself suffering for days. Like, you know, it's scary, man. But it teaches you a lot. Like I always say in my talks, we live in a hyper connected world, right? Yeah. You got your cell phone, you know, you're talking to people all day. You're on social media, you're working, you're grinding. You don't have time to talk to yourself anymore.
Yeah.
Right? To connect with yourself, self-knowledge, bro. Like, where do you want to get? I had an X on my map. It was Calgary. Yeah. You have an X on your map. Yeah. It's to win a world championship. Right. I meet so many people nowadays, especially youth, that don't have that X.
Yeah. Wow.
They just wake up and go about it. If you don't have that X, how are you ever going to get there?
Wow.
So having those conversations, being by yourself, finding time to be alone on a horse, driving, whatever, on a bicycle, having those moments to talk to yourself, have that conversation. Am I happy? Where do I want to get? Because, man, one of the biggest lessons I learned on this trip is that it's all going to end like this. You talk to a man that lived 95 years and he's going to tell you yesterday he was 20.
That's crazy.
And most of us don't even get there, man. So you really have to enjoy this opportunity.
That's
And I
crazy.
mean, it's a lot. I'm sure it's a lot different. Obviously, that's a way higher magnitude what you were doing. But same thing with me with rodeo. When I see myself going through slumps and different things over a long period of time, I'm not seeing that X every day, working towards getting to that X. If you just stopped and started wandering off, well, you look up like, what did I just do for the last 6 months? I'm not going towards my X. You know,
100%.
So whether it was not working towards winning a gold buckle or just being the best person I can be or the best roper I can be, I think there's a lot to be said about that. You know, and just kind of getting lost out here, not finding that X every day.
Yes,
Did you set? I mean, you had to set small goals to get to the big goal because that's what we're talking
100%.
about.
That's what makes it. That's the recipe to being successful, man. If I thought about the trip every day, I go crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's too long. It's too hard.
Well, what about? Okay, so this is what we were talking yesterday. Did you just roll up to the border in line with car,
100%,
horse,
man.
car?
Bro. Oh, so much anxiety. Talk about anxiety.
No, you can't come in. And
No,
you,
man.
and you probably cross some illegally too.
100%. That was the first goal. You're talking about goals. That was the first one. Get to Montana. Bad Montana. I get there. I'm standing in line. I'm Brazilian, bro. I've been deported. Okay. I know a thing or two about borders. Like the anxiety I have to this day when I land in Canada, I get anxiety going through that because they treated me so bad for years.
Wow.
Because once I come back after that woman gave me the scholarship, every single time I gave that guy or that woman the passport, like I don't know what he saw on the computer, but a red light went out, and he would ask me, "What'd you do in Canada?" And then I'd explain. He sent me to the second room. I'd be in there for hours. Question till they let me go. So max anxiety. I get to the U.S. with 2 horses, a Sorrel and a yellow horse, a Palomino. I'm like so scared, right? Everyone's like taking photos and stuff, but I was coming into Montana, man. It's the heartland of the U.S.
Literally.
They were so nice to me, so kind. They're like, please tell me you have all your papers. I'm like, I got my Coggins. I'm ready to go. Gave them the papers. They let me go, and off I went.
It was easy.
It was easy peasy. They found me my first place to sleep that night. Even the officer, they were super kind. Yes, sir.
Wow. That's
So, I guess where did you cross over? Did you go through Mexico?
So yeah, I went through Presidio down in Texas into Mexico.
Where's that by?
So it's by Pecos. I rode down Pecos into that area.
So what was that border like crossing?
Man, that was crazy, bro. Because like every American and Canadian I told about the trip, they're like, they're gonna kill you in Mexico. And this was a really bad time. It was 2012. Filipe Calderon, who was the president at the time, had like waged a full-out war against the drug lords, killed the main drug lords, but that just opened up the turf to these young guys, and they were coming up fighting themselves. So it was really dangerous. But I was always like, man, you guys live in the U.S. and Canada, you don't know anything. But then the Mexicans, because you guys know, once you get past Colorado, you're in Mexico, right? Like everyone you meet is Mexican, right? Which is awesome.
True.
But every Mexican person I met was like, man, don't go into Mexico. They're going to kill you, right? I'm like, oh, damn, now I'm going to die. So it was like riding to my own funeral, man. I was so scared. Anxiety, back to the anxiety max. But honestly, bro, like no country celebrated my trip like the Mexicans.
Did you carry a gun or anything?
No, because it was you
can't cross
right?
with it and all that. Yeah,
you can't. So I had pepper spray in the U.S. for bears, but in Mexico I had God. That was it.
Pepper spray for bears.
Yeah, man.
But that pepper
imagine
it would jack up a person too if he had to do it. If he had to use
right.
it.
Sometimes guns just complicate things, you know what I mean? But there with the animals, like I was riding 3 bears a day in some parts of the world, you know, grizzly bears. I wish I had a gun for those animals, but people is tough.
Okay, but you said the drug lords. Is that the reason you said people in Mexico celebrate you more than anybody? I guess that's the story of. I mean, how did you even know he was a drug lord? You said a drug lord.
So this was in Mexico. I never really came in contact with drug lords. Like I knew they were around. They were at the parties.
It was in South America.
This was in Central America. So Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. That's when like it got really scary because they control everything. And like in Mexico, the border problem started. I could only get 2 horses legally into Mexico as a foreigner. So the 3rd horse had to get taken illegally through the Rio Grande. So then everything started going bad. Then when we got to Guatemala, the first border, then it was just impossible because they have no rules there. You show up with 3 horses at the border, these guys don't even know what to do with you. right? And then they want money, and there is so much corruption and so dangerous. So then I started befriending these drug lords because they don't ask you who you are. I'm going through the mountains, right? The St. Pat's, they cross cocaine, AK-47s, whatever. So there you have to let them know, because if they don't know who you are, they're going to kill you first and then find out whose body it was.
Right.
So Guatemala to Honduras, I spent 3 days in this guy's house. He had a mansion, a petting zoo in his house. He had an exact replica of the last meal, that table. He had that. He made it. Like,
so was the Last Supper?
The Last Supper, yes. The Last Supper. He got that made, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And like this, everyone armed, bro. Like kids, 9-year-old kids already packing heat, AK-47s everywhere. Like I couldn't look in this guy's eyes. Like you have a spark in your eye. You have one. This guy was like mate black. Like you could tell it harbored so much like evil,
destruction,
but he was so kind at the same time. You know what I mean? He was a huge contradiction. Like to me and his family, he was super nice. He treated me so well. And again, thanks to the horse, he loved horses.
Wow. Yeah, it's almost like a movie. You see those people in movies where it's like in Netflix, it's like you kind of like the big bosses at sometimes, but they're also mafia bosses.
100%,
you know?
man. And it was just like also a teaching experience. Like you can't judge people till you walk in their shoes.
Yeah.
This guy was dirt poor, was hungry growing up. This was his opportunity. You know what I mean? No one wakes up one day and decides to live that kind of life. And he was a human. Like he had two sides to him. He was very scary, but he was also a really nice guy.
So I think let's get towards where you started to finish up the trip.
Yes, sir.
Tell us, I mean, obviously you go through Barritos. Was it, did you go through, or was that just a celebration? Or
that was the place, right? Once I started planning the trip, I'm like, I'm going to leave Calgary. I got to get to Barritos, right? Largest rodeo in Latin America, 1.4 million people through 10 days. Just, you boys have to go down. It's worth
I'm
seeing.
actually going this year.
You're going?
Yeah, I'm going.
Oh, okay. We're going to hang out down there then.
You're going to be there?
Yeah, bro. I'm there. There's a statue of me there. You're going to go see it. These guys,
awesome.
yeah.
I've heard about Barritos for years. People talk about it. That's crazy.
Man, it's insane. It's honestly, you got to go see it. If you love the rodeo world, you got to go see it. It's a beast of its own.
Oh,
so I end there, man. It's the first Saturday of the rodeo. I ride into the arena, 40,000 people crying. My family's there. That was one of the biggest moments where I felt God's presence in my life. Like I felt him there. I felt like my soul had left my body. Like I was seeing everything from so far, you know, like just to be there with those animals, like my kids, man, Frenchie, Bruiser, and Dude, like 803 days. We went to war. And it was like, we woke up together, we slept together, we ate together, we rode together. Like we were an extension of each other's bodies, and just to be there with them and them being so healthy, like it was so emotional. And my family was there, my grandma, like it was so huge. And then they took me to see my statue, and I was like, what? Like this is
they'd
crazy.
already made it.
Yeah, they'd already made it, man. It was more than 5 meters tall. It's got the 3 horses and me on top, and
wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then from there, I rode to my family's ranch, retired the 3 horses, the boys, and that was really special as well. You know, getting up there and taking those saddles off for the last time. You know, and in Colorado, this guy gave me his sister's ashes. Naomi, she had passed away 2 months prior in Craig, Colorado, and she loved horses. And she loved adventure. And he's like, if she was alive today, she'd go with you. And he's like, I feel like, you know, why did you come knock on my door? I feel like God brought you to my door to take Naomi on one last ride. And honestly, man, like I took the ashes and put him in the pack saddle. And the further we got, like Frenchie got hit by a truck in Mexico. Dude fell into a cattle guard in Central America. Bruiser colicked, like the gunshots, the deserts. Like there were so many moments where I'm like, I'm going to die. Like those moments where you're like, I'm going to die. This is it. This horse is going to die. And somehow, some way, man, we came out the other side. I feel like this woman was like a guardian angel, you know, like nothing happens for no reason. God took me to that house, not to take Naomi on one last ride, but to have her with me as a guardian angel. When I got to Brazil, I still had the ashes. So when I released the horses into their pasture, I put them in my hand, the ashes. I prayed to her, I thanked her, and then I kind of like threw the ashes up, and I thought they were going to fall, but it became like this white cloud, and it just kind of went away, and I asked her to continue protecting the horses.
Wow.
Crazy story.
I can't imagine.
Bro, so, I mean, obviously, how long was it from Barritos to your hometown? How many days was that?
It was 2 weeks.
2 weeks. And then, do you still have those horses today? Are they still?
Frenchie's still there. Frenchie's still there. We lost Bruiser and Dude.
But
They
Frenchie's
got
still
old,
there?
but Frenchie's 22, living the dream, breaking fence posts, giving my dad hell.
Wow.
I can see though, thinking about like the high point of coming into the Barretos Rodeo, having the statue,
Yes, sir.
and then you get back to your house 2 weeks later, and then it's like,
Yes,
what? How do you come down from that? Like that's
Yes, sir.
What I mean, like that's the most natural, pure form of the craziest drug. And then what do? You know, the
100%, man.
adrenaline and the feeling of that. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, since that trip, what was that you finished it 2-3 years ago, or how many years ago did you finish?
So that first trip from Canada to Brazil was from 2012 to 2014. Then I did Brazil to the southern tip of Argentina, finished that in 2017. And then 2018, did the last trip to Calgary, Alaska to Calgary to finish off the Americas, finish here in 2020.
2020.
2020 was the end of it.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
since then, today's 2024.
Yes,
what
sir.
has obviously you went to a little bit when you talked about the children's hospital and you
Yes,
found your
sir.
purpose. What has changed for you since 2020?
Oh man, so many things. Like I got engaged to this beautiful woman. That was awesome. At the Calgary Stampede Ranch where they raised the bucking horses.
Really?
The year we arrived, that was really cool. Released a documentary.
Yeah, that's a one question. What
Yes,
was
sir.
it like filming,
Oh.
doing all this stuff? Because obviously you just took 2 GoPros, right?
I had 2 GoPros, I had 2 cameras, I had the tripod. It was the hardest part, man, because you got to ride the horses, you got to shoe the horses, you got to be the vet, you got to be the bureaucrat, you got to make friends with the drug lords, and then you have to stop the horses,
Film yourself.
grab everything out of the pack saddle, set everything up, get back on the horse, ride 200 meters back, cross the camera, get off, put everything away. It was so hard, man, but it was totally worth it because I always like DX. I knew that this was paying the trip. These guys were paying me every month to film this. You know what I mean? So I had to do it, and it worked out, man. We won 21 awards around the
Wow.
world. It was a huge success. Went to Spain, went to Hollywood, went to India, Mumbai,
Jeez.
India. And the doc came out here on Amazon Prime in Canada. It's on Up TV in the US. It's coming out around the world. So it changed my life, man. It changed my life. It's really cool to get to be in audiences, and it hits people hard, man, because everyone has a dream.
Yeah.
Everyone has a struggle. And like we've been in festivals with people like just crying nonstop after, just like telling me, man, you sparked my fire again. I'm going to get after it. Like I thought it was done, but you lit that fire again. And that makes it so worth it for me, man.
I'm telling you, how could you not be? I'm freaking fired up. I'm ready to
Let's
get
go
to work.
tomorrow, baby.
Let's go. I mean,
Tomorrow,
why would
let's
you not?
go,
Why would you
man.
not be able to work for what you want? If this guy can do this and make that commitment, I mean, why would you not do the best
Yes,
you can
sir.
do to be the best you can at everything you do?
Yes, sir.
So being the commentator for Calgary Stampede, this is your new kind of baby, your new thing that you're really putting your all into.
Yes, sir. That's something I love so much. Like I said, it's a dream come true for me to be here with these guys, the best in the world, and just calling it like I see it, man. Like I say, I'm sure there's people out there that are like, man, this guy is over the top, but I'm just a passionate guy, you know? So for me, I'm just that excited out there, and I love it. 10 days, best 10 days of the year for me. Come here in July. Now we go to Barretos. You're going to be there. That's going to be so cool.
It's
You're going to
gonna
love
be
it, man.
electric, dude.
You're going to love it.
Heard stories. To wrap it up, this would be a great place to end. I saw on your Instagram, it was like, I think it was when you were accepting one of your awards. You gave it was like a motivational speech, was a
Yes, sir.
accepted speech, but you talked about your horses,
Yes.
and it was just this hype speech about the
Thanks,
value
buddy.
of horses.
Yes,
I kind of
sir.
want you to share a little bit about that, and that would be a good place to wrap.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Yeah, that was a Western Heritage Award down in Oklahoma at the Cowboy Museum. Have you guys ever gone down there? Totally worth it. When you're going through Oklahoma, go check it out. It's so beautiful, man. It's huge. And they celebrate Western culture from the beginning to now. And so we won. The documentary won Best Documentary of the Year. And yeah, man, like basically I just wanted to try to share with people this idea that I told you guys at the beginning, that the horse is a common language. You know, because I traveled at 3 kilometers an hour, 30 kilometers a day, I got to break bread with the charros, with the cowboys, with the vaqueros, with the peão in Brazil, with the gaucho in Argentina and in Uruguay. And you start to see that although we dress differently, although we ride different breeds of horses, we have the same beliefs and we work for the same things. You know, we're stewards of the land. We're taking care of that land every day, of the animals. We live for animals. We put food on people's tables. And this cowboy culture exists from Alaska to Ushuaia, Argentina. And it's so beautiful. And that's what got me into these people's homes every day. Like I said, it was the horse that allowed me to go into their homes. It was the horse. That's why they helped me. And it was the horse that allowed me to go on this journey. And if you look back in history, you know, they say the dog is men's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
The horse helped write history. Everything we have was thanks to the horse. The first thing they did when they arrived in the Americas was put horses on those ships and bring them, you know what I mean? To clear these places, to plant, to clear fields, to go to war for us. And to this day, you know, you're blessed. You're a blessed man to make a living on the back of a horse.
For sure.
Right.
A dog might be the man's best friend, but I think a good horse is a man's family, you know? So
Amen,
that's the way I
brother.
look at it. If you have a good horse, my good horses that have helped me get to where I'm at are never going to leave my place. They're just family. So
Amen.
anyways, pretty cool deal. Pretty crazy.
If that'll
Pretty awesome to hear. It'll get you fired up
fire
right
up
there.
to live the Western way of life, man. That's electric. Thank you for doing this
Yes, sir.
podcast, bro.
Guys, thanks for having me, man. It's so cool, especially after today, man. What a round. Let's go, man.
Thank you so much for coming, Felipe.
Yeah, thank you
thanks
for having
coming
me.
on.